cloudy. Kind of weird. You got like these sort of metallic looking clouds. Maybe it's just my paranoia. I was going to talk about flat Earth. I was watching a flat Earth debate yesterday on Modern Day Debates. And the guy was pretty good. I think he was a genuine flat earther. As much as I don't like that title, I mean, I'll self-apply the title regardless, just because I don't fall into the group known as globers. I would take the flat Earth side in a debate. However, I wouldn't call it a flat Earth debate. I would call it a heliocentric model debate. I think flat Earth debate is the psyop. Whether or not it was intended to be a psyop, I think it's definitely a psyop that's being maybe just self-imposed by flat earthers even, but unknowingly, because it's not like we need to, like, all that flat earthers really ever were saying was that we don't believe in the globe earth model. We found enough reason just upon like we just took it on faith as children, like we were just told that the earth was a ball and that it's, you know, people that were like not as smart as us used to think the earth was flat. And it's just like, it's a stupid thing to think. We were just programmed to think that. We weren't really given that many good reasons as to why the earth was a ball or known to be a ball. In fact, we didn't really receive much in-depth education about it. And I kind of resent that a little bit because there is a lot of work that was poured into the whole globe model, and it's pretty impressive. And it would have been nice to have been aware of all that before. I don't know. I don't think it would have. I don't think I'd have any different of a standing on this subject now if I had been educated about all of it, but it would have saved me some time. Because it's an impressive collection of work. I mean, all the measurements and all the math, it's incredible. And it's almost just like, it's so it's so impressive as to just like, wow. I mean, sometimes I feel like it's almost too impressive. It's just like, wow, how did we do that? I mean, it's a lot of work that went into that. The way people's minds work, I mean, it's incredible. However, I don't think it's true. Hey, Ryan S, nice to see you. I think that it was just an assumption, and they started realizing the sky observations could be interpreted that way. But I think they just got a little bit ahead of themselves, which is why we see fake space and stuff like that. The space agencies of the world just failing time and time again at presenting like a believable presentation of space or whatever. It's always just lacking. We've seen so much fraud in regards to that it's just, that's a huge part of the puzzle that needs to be emphasized in any discussion of the earth being a globe. It's like, I don't think it's that easy. I don't think they have it all figured out the way they say they do, otherwise they wouldn't be faking space. And it's my opinion that the reason I became a flat earther in the first place is I had that epiphany where I was like, I was going over all the information. I'd watched all the content that I could possibly watch about flat earth, and I was still going back and forth in my head, with all the debates, and just thinking like, wow, what about the star trails and the sun, and 24-hour sun in Antarctica? And I was just going back and forth in my mind, and I started thinking about it, and I just was realizing that, like, the thing that's really silly about the globe for me is the idea that an outward expanding, like the outward expanse, like if you just think about how vast and how it just, if you were to just imagine every direction, how it widens, like if you were to just raise up in the sky and look out in every direction, and it just seems to extend forever in every direction. And I just imagine like an outward expanding perimeter. It would only widen. That's all we would ever see. It could never close back up and be on the other end of the ball. That doesn't seem. Sometimes I feel like my thought experiment here is not valid, but then other times I just realize that it doesn't make any sense to think that an outward expanse would ever start to close back up. It's hard for me to explain it even. It's like, just imagine that like every location on Earth has a definite, like a exact measurement that goes around it. Like, it might be an imaginary line that's drawn, like the state of California has a distinct, there's a perimeter that goes around the state, and it's a specific measurement. It's always going to be that measurement. Every location on Earth, will have a specific measurement around it. If you wanted to do that, if you wanted to say the United States has a specific amount of square miles in it, and we know that because we can, trace around the whole perimeter of it and do the math and figure out the square mileage within that perimeter. Every place on Earth has a certain amount of square miles, and you figure that out by figuring out what the perimeter around that location is. Now, if you start taking all the locations on Earth and start putting them all together, if just all these attached different locations, there's going to be a perimeter around all of it, and it's going to get bigger and bigger as you add more and more places to it. The perimeter keeps increasing, and you keep having more places, and the perimeter has to go around more and more places, and it just gets wider and wider. That's all you'd see happen. Like a bigger piece of property has a bigger perimeter. It's that simple. It really is. I mean, you're never gonna see anything other than that happen. Like the more places you add within this perimeter that I'm talking about, the wider it gets. How would you ever imagine that to start to shrink back down again? Like you would have to be on the upside down part of the ball or whatever. You're like, okay, now we're going to see this perimeter start to shrink. How is it going to shrink? Well, now you're just circling the now it's like negative space, like where it's like once you go past the median, now you're just circling around property that you haven't accounted for yet. And I guess that makes sense, but still, prior to that, your perimeter was going around all the property that you had accounted for, and that was a specific measurement. So where does that measurement go once you start getting this smaller measurement that's circling the property you haven't accounted for now? Like, it's difficult to explain even because it's just a head fuck to think that would happen, but like that measurement is always going to be there. You can't just put a smaller measurement around the outside of it. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm probably not making any sense either trying to explain it, but I was working on a story that I wanted to, it could be a children's book. I thought it would be a clever idea just because it could be it could be a children's book that is disguised as being a book that teaches kids about the globe Earth, which it would, but it would also teach them how believing in the globe Earth, it requires a certain amount of there's a certain amount of cognitive dissonance that you're going to run into. And it was, the idea of the book was a kid wins the concentric circle lottery, where it's like you're given, I think the book would best work if you're given the North Pole. The circle around the North Pole is just a circular piece of property. and you're told you own this circular piece of property here at the North Pole. However, if you want more property, all you have to do is step outside of your circle and then make a new circle around the outside of the one that you already had. And now that's your new property line. Concentric circles are just circles around circles. The circles get bigger. So the character in the book realizes I can just, and you can just continue doing this. So it's like the kid realizes he can have an ever increasing piece of property. All they have to do is just step outside of the previous circle and make a new circle, and it's bigger, and you have that much more property. And so now you're left to realize, like, wow, I can just keep expanding my property. Eventually, it's going to be huge, and I'm going to own so much land. All I have to do is just keep making these circles, and it might be kind of time consuming, but you can get friends to help you, and you just start making these circles, and like each one gets bigger. Each one covers more Earth. You're just making concentric circles moving outward from the North Pole, similar to latitude lines, circles, whatever. And and the only rule is this: you only own what's inside the last circle that you drew. That's that's the only rule you have to know. Is like the last circle that you drew, whatever's inside that circle is your property. And so the question that I want to ask people is, if you were able to continue doing this exercise indefinitely with all other variables aside, do you think that eventually you would own the whole world? Do you think that's possible with this thought exercise to eventually own the whole world if you're able to just continue this exercise of drawing circles around the outside of another circle, right? That keep getting bigger. Do you think that eventually you would own the whole world if you just kept doing this? And I think most people would say yes, and I do think that's the correct answer. However, I'm a flat earther. But the thing is, on a globe Earth, the answer is no, because the biggest circle you're going to make on the globe Earth is at the median. In this case, it would be the equator, 24 or 25,000 miles around in circumference. After that, the circles start to close back up because you're on the other end of the ball, and until you're down at the South Pole, which is the last circle you would make. But globers would come back at me and say, no, you still own all the property that you had prior to that, but now you're just circling the property that you don't own. And my response to that is no, because the only rule of the game is you own what's inside the last circle you drew. So if your circles start to shrink once you go past the equator, if they get smaller, well, then your property's getting smaller. You only own what's inside the circle, so you'll never be circling property that you don't own. So that doesn't check out. So the most you would own in this thought exercise on a globe Earth is half the world. That's the most you would ever own. Because once you pass the median, now your circles are getting smaller. And what's fucked up is that once you pass the median, you lose all the other property that you had prior to that, because now your circles are getting smaller and they're circling a different area. Because now they're closing back in. So each circle that you make is inside the circle. Versus prior to that, each circle you were making was on the outside. You're still moving south away from the North Pole, but now the circles you're making are inside of each other, versus before that they were outside. So your concentric circles got so wide, but then you got to the median of the globe Earth, and now the circles have to start getting smaller, and each circle you draw is inside the last circle you drew prior to that. So the whole thing switches around, and now your property is shrinking. And in this thought exercise, you would actually lose all the property that you had prior to that, because now your circle is going around a whole different area, and it's closing in around a whole different center point that's, like, that's in a completely different place on Earth. So this thought exercise kind of just warps your mind when you think about it. It's like, how would that actually take place in reality? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me. I think what we'd really see in real life is that the circles would just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and never do anything other than get bigger. And eventually you would own the whole known world. It's my opinion. I believe that it's fact, it's reality that the circles just get bigger. It doesn't matter where you start. You make a circle on the ground, you're never going to make a smaller circle around the outside of it. The circles just get bigger. The earth just widens more and more vast, more and more wide. You'll never see a different result. I've talked about it like, let's say you want to start building an empire. You start with a circular piece of property, it's circling 500 acres. And you're like, I'm just going to continue widening my empire and it's going to get bigger and bigger. My house is going to be right here in the center, right at the beginning. The first circle that I drew is just like around 500 acres. I'm going to put my castle right in the middle of it. So now we're just going to expand outward evenly in every direction from my castle. So my castle will always be right in the middle of my property. My property is going to get bigger and more wide, moving out evenly in every direction. So my castle will always be right in the middle. So you just keep doing this, and it's like it takes a long time to just make a new circle, and like, because your circles get so wide, and so big, your castle's still right in the middle of it. And at a certain point, the people making the circles around the property, it's like they can't even tell that they're traveling in a circle. It seems like a straight line to them, but they always come back to where they started. So they know that they just made a complete circle, and the castle is always right in the middle of whatever they were circling. So they know they're making a circle, even though it seems like it's a straight line they're traveling in. Now, this could go on for maybe even for generations. I mean, I don't know how long it would take, but like you'd carry on like this for a while. Now, if this straight line that these people are making, let's say they're going west or whatever. Let's say the circle originally was like you're turning to the right as you're circling, this property. So you're turning to the right, but after a while, it just seems like a straight line because it's such a big circle. Now, if this straight line eventually starts to veer to the left, and it becomes more and more apparent that you're no longer circling the castle, you're making a circle around a different area that you don't own, and now each circle is starting to get smaller, and it takes less time to make it all the way back around. Your castle's still in the same spot, but it's no longer in the middle of your circle that you're making. Now the circle you're making is circling a different area that you don't own. And at the point where you finally close back in all the way, I believe that would falsify flat Earth. That's my opinion. I don't know, because at that point you've traveled the entire realm. The entire place that's available to travel. Like you'd gone and you made circles around circles around circles around circles until the circles started curving the other direction and closing in around the last remaining locations on Earth that hadn't been acquired yet. You went from circling your castle to now you're circling property that you don't own, and then it just eventually closes back in all the way, and now you own the whole entire world. But what was interesting is that the circles you started making had your castle in the middle of it, but at a certain point, the circles you were making no longer had your castle in the middle of it. So it's like reality sort of warped or something. Like that's where things that's where I have to depart from reality if I have to believe that's what would happen. Because I don't think that's what would happen. But I do think that's an illustration, or like that would illustrate what the path of the sun seems to be doing. Like the biggest circle the sun makes would have to be at the equator, right? Because they designed the globe model based off of sky observations. I think the latitude circles are indicative of the path of the sun. Weed, oh yes, thank you. Oh, my thing's clogged. So it's my opinion that that would falsify flat Earth if we saw that happen. If the circles got so wide, but then they started curving the other direction and closing in around a different location, that would be a falsification of flat Earth. I mean, it's not something that we'll ever see done. I don't think it's something that anybody will ever do, or anybody has ever done. I don't think it's something that would ever happen either. I think the wider the expanse, the more Earth within it, it just gets wider and wider and wider. You'll never see anything else happen other than that. Like you could even, I don't know if you could get AI to like help you with this, but like if you're if you were to just get down on the ground level on Google Earth or whatever and just start making perimeters around specific locations that are real places on Earth, and you just say you tell the AI, I want to build an empire, and you just start making these perimeters, but you just go around and then you just come back and you close up the perimeter and then you do it again. You just step outside of your property that you own and you make a new one all the way around, and you just have the AI helping you with it, like taking the data, like now we own part of this country and part of this ocean and part of this desert, and and just keep taking notes. Like, how big is our perimeter now? It's this many thousands of miles around, and we gained part of this continent and then part of this, and it's like, and it's gradual, like every time you go around, it's like, you're going back over places that you've already acquired some of, and it's like, but occasionally you'll like, you know, expand into some other space that you haven't acquired. And oh, we got part of Australia now, and we're coming back around. Oh, we got part of South America, but you just like you're expanding wider and wider, and I think you would just see that perimeter just continues to grow. And I think if people were really caught in the exercise, caught in the moment of just like the fun of acquiring more property as it expands outward, I don't think anybody who's playing this or doing this exercise would ever start to wonder, like, why isn't it shrinking? How come we're not getting a smaller perimeter? I don't think people would really have that thought, because what's evident is that you're just adding more property to this perimeter that you have. So nobody would ever consider the fact that, like, or nobody would ever think it's strange that the perimeter keeps getting bigger, because you're just adding more places to the perimeter that you already had. So it's like expanding. Nobody's ever going to be like, oh, how come it's not shrinking? We just added a bunch more places into our perimeter. How come it's not smaller? Nobody would say that, would they? What do you think? Hey, Diana Red Heifer, nice to see you. Looks like we got some randoms in here. Mushrooms or aliens? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, but I was just talking about, you know, the face of the earth. I hope it's obvious what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to be that abstract. I mean, when you talk about the earth as a whole, it is kind of abstract because nobody ever really sees the whole earth. We just see what's in our present, surroundings. And we also, recall what we've been taught about earth in our mind. If we're going to envision the whole earth, we always default to the globe floating in space, floating and spinning and orbiting and all those motions, while we stand here on what appears to be a stationary, firm, stable ground, where it's like we can't really detect any of those motions with any of our most sensitive, equipment. Like, we have some pretty advanced equipment. I mean, there's like seismographs and interferometry, and there's like different ways of detecting motion. That we've, you know, advancement of technology has been able to create. But we've never been able to create something that effectively measures, that can detect the motion of Earth. Granted, there are like these gyros and these pendulums that claim to be demonstrating the motion of Earth by the way the recession or whatever. It's kind of hard for me to explain, but the thing is, I don't find that to be compelling, because I don't understand why someone would think that's showing the motion of Earth while it's still attached to the Earth, and for one thing, and it's it's implying that this thing is able to maintain its position while Earth is rotating, like the gyro compass, while Earth is rotating under it. But if that was something that could be done with that thing, with that same idea, you'd be able to hover a drone, or a helicopter above the ground and then have the ground move underneath it. But that's not what we see. So this gyro compass, whatever, uh, if anything, I think maybe the Earth is a gyro. The Earth plane remains rigidity in space while the celestial sphere is like making its. You know what I'm talking about, huh, Diane Redheffer? Well, you're a seasoned Dr. Bass viewer. Hola, Tank Johnson. Nice to see you. Welcome to my weird show with no title. Today, the title was waived. I waived the title. It's a title wave. This Dr. Bass Live. This guy over here was suggesting that I smoke some more weed or put down the weed. Well, I'm going to pick up the weed. I usually go against the grain. That's why I'm Dr. Bas Ackwards. I'm doing pretty good, man. How about you? I'm doing all right, I guess is what I would say. I'm kind of cloudy. I think I need to smoke some more pot. But don't try this at home. Don't let me be a bad influence. I just enjoy it because it gives me a sense of humor. I already have a sense of humor, but it helps embellish my sense of humor a little bit. Anything interesting going on with you guys? I do feel like the flat Earth conversation is is reaching more of an audience, or it's still growing. The audience is still growing. The people that are willing to listen to it. There's new people coming into it all the time. And originally, it was a pretty small portion of society that was engaging in the discussion, but now I think it's grown to be like most people have heard about it now. When I first heard about it, I thought it was a joke, obviously, and everybody does. But when I first heard about it, I was like, "That's cool. These guys are just, purposefully like being contrarians." Is what I thought. I thought it was like punk rock. I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool, man. Fuck yeah." I didn't know they were serious, and I didn't even think about it. I was just a couple years went by, and then I happened to see a fucking Taboo Conspiracy, his Flat Earth Awakening video. It was the video that was titled "The Moon Landing Hoax," and then it segued into its Flat Earth Awakening. So I clicked on the video thinking I was just watching a video about the moon landing hoax because I never really believed in the moon landing. And he did a good coverage of why he thinks it's not real, and I agree with him. But then he just segued into his Flat Earth Awakening, and I was like, whoa! It was totally caught me off guard. I was like, wait a minute, where the fuck are we? And I like Taboo Conspiracy. His name is Ben. I like that guy a lot. He's like one of my favorite flat earthers. I think he's incredibly charming and just he's got a great mind. I think the way his mind works is I can relate to it. I think it's good. I like him. He's got a good personality for this. I mean, because it becomes about the person's personality really when it comes to like discussing this, because people that are worried about being ridiculed or made fun of, those kind of people they're not gonna fare well in this, because there's a lot of ridicule that comes at you when you're talking flat Earth. People who switch sides. What are you saying? You flat earthers are lessening? Oh, you mean there's less of them now? I don't think that's true. I did see a few people go back to believing in the globe, and I was toying with the idea for a minute, because you can make a compelling argument with the whole 24-hour sun in Antarctica being confirmed, but for me, like I still just, like I was saying, my thought exercise, which is like, if you just consider that there's a certain amount of square mileage available on the known world, the known Earth, And do you think it's possible to make a perimeter around the entire known Earth? Why wouldn't you be able to? I mean, you can make a perimeter around your neighborhood, you can make a perimeter around your county, your state, your country, the surrounding countries, and the oceans. And why wouldn't you just be able to make a perimeter around the entire known world? Why does that seem so crazy? It's not. I mean, I think it's perfectly legitimate. I think that's something you could definitely do. But that's why I'm a flat earther, I guess. On the globe Earth, the biggest circumference you can make is at the median, which is essentially it's only circling half the world, really, when you think about it. But think about it. What area is the equator encompassing? It's a circle. So what area is it encompassing? Circles have a certain area within them. Like when you draw a circle on the face of the earth, it's circling a specific area. So what specific area is the equator encompassing? Well, I don't think it's even a circle according to the globe model. I think they call it a straight line. It's the only latitude that's a straight line. And that's because the sun travels straight overhead when you're at the equator during the equinox. You'll see the sun passing straight over your head. And so if you had like a camera that was following it, your camera would be pointing at the ground during night. And so that would lead someone to believe, oh wow, the sun must be under us. So we must be living on a ball. And I could see that train of thought, and I could see how somebody would start to think that it was true. And then you have to start coming up with reasons why people aren't falling off the ball, and and why the how everything can manage to be like held to a ball. And I guess the idea of gravity kind of makes sense, where it's like everything's being pulled inward, and but it's such a vast area that it doesn't seem like it's a ball. It's just, but it does eventually curve all the way around. That's just the way things work in this reality or whatever. That's why I accepted it on faith at 5 years old when I was first told about the globe Earth or whatever. But I always thought it was funny when I was a kid thinking about, like, well, what if you just started falling all the way through Earth, all the way through? Well, you have to be falling up at a certain point, and you just picture yourself falling up out of the ground in China or whatever. I used to laugh about that. I thought it was funny. But I guess what would happen is that you would just crushed and turn into a ball of lava in the middle, because the pressure from the gravity would be so great, even though nothing was on top of you. But just the pressure from gravity would crush you. Is this? I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. But I think what's happening at the equator during equinox, when the sun travels straight overhead and your camera's pointing at the ground during the nighttime, I think it's just the biggest circle the sun makes, and so therefore it looks like a straight line. It's just ever so gradually curving, but you won't see that in your locality. It'll just seem like it's a straight line going overhead. I mean, that would be the only explanation I can come up with for that one. You think I'm slow? Yeah, I try to take it slow, but like I also try to think big too. I mean, I think it's interesting stuff to think about. I mean, you could just accept what you've been taught as being fact and just like welcome it, welcome whatever propaganda gets thrown at you with open arms. Go get your shots and stay up to date. Stay boosted. Or you should. I think you should ponder each thing that's been presented to you as fact and just question it yourself and just think, does this check out, or is there a reason why somebody would lie to me about this, or what else is going on? How could you know that, or that kind of thing? And when it comes to the globe Earth, I mean, if you really scrutinize what's being presented as far as this space travel is concerned, it's pretty shabby. Like there's a lot of fake stuff they show you, and most of it is fake, in my opinion. I mean, do you think that we're going to Mars? You think there's rovers on Mars? Little helicopters flying around on Mars being remote controlled by people here on Earth. They just flew to Mars. I used to think that was true. I think for a minute I was like actually entertaining that idea as being real, but now I just see how easy it would be to fake that. I mean, I would never do that, but I'm just saying it's like if you wanted to convince people that your model that you created, however laboriously, I mean, it was a lot of work putting the globe model together. It's a lot of math and a lot of observations, really careful observations. Like if you think about the analemma, this is interesting shit. I like it. I think it's cool. Like the analemma is like, when you're at the North Pole or this, you see the sun, it's circling overhead, but it's making this sort of wavy. Like if you go out and you take an observation of where the sun is, and then every day you take an observation of it, it's making this wavy. It's called the analemma, and the reason it's doing that, they say, is because of the tilt of Earth. Earth is tilted away from the sun while spinning. So you have to imagine this, like if you're on a ball that's spinning and you're facing the sun, there technically should be a place where you can go on Earth where the sun just sits there in the sky above your head and just stays in one spot. If you're on a ball spinning and you're facing the sun, there should be a place where you can go on Earth where the sun just stays in one spot over your head. Like if you were spinning a ball on your finger, like just imagine that. But that's not the case. However, you will go to a place on Earth where the sun makes a little circle over your head, or a little enough circle where you can see it the whole time and it doesn't get dark. And the reason it doesn't just stay in one spot is because of this tilt that we're talking about. The tilt, they say the Earth is tilted, so it's not directly at the, so it's not spinning evenly, it's wobbling. The tilt causes the wobble. So you're not quite getting, so like where you would see the sun just in one spot, if you're spinning evenly and facing directly at the sun, you would just see the sun sitting in one spot in the sky. They say the motion of the sun is because of the spin of the Earth. The reason we don't see the sun just sit in one spot in the sky anywhere on Earth at either pole is because of this alleged tilt. And that alleged tilt causes the Earth to wobble when it spins, so it doesn't. So the sun will never just stay in one spot. It's always going to be making circles. And the analemma is sort of like a profile image of that. It's kind of hard to explain, but are you following me at all? That's cool, Jim. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to be insulted by people, but like I take it with stride. I mean, I just hope that some of these people that would think it's stupid would humor me and just hear me out, especially because I'm not being combative, and just be like, "Well, this guy's so dumb, but let me hear what other dumb shit he has to say. Maybe I'll find more stuff to laugh at." And they'll just be like trying to find more stuff to laugh at, and then all of a sudden it'll click in their mind and be like, "Wait a minute, what the fuck? Why didn't I ever think about this shit?" But a lot of people just don't want to think about stuff. They find it more amusing to just make fun of people. And I can relate. I think it's fun to find humor in things. But when we're talking about reality, it's good to keep a sense of humor. You should never get offended about it, really, because I mean, it's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, it's like whatever somebody's opinion about reality is kind of beside the point. But we want to find like a truth that we can all unify around, and that it feels better to have like a unified you know belief in what's happening or understanding of what's going on here. And I believe what's going on here is that God created a perfect realm for us to live in, and it's been going on for so long that people kind of taken it for granted, and they've designed these models as to what they think is going on, but they left God out of the equation. And it's become this thing where it's like we've exploded from a big bang and evolved from lifeless space debris that was spinning around in the vacuum for no real reason at all. It just kind of leaves you feeling sort of like there's something missing, like purpose. And I think purpose is important. I think without purpose, there's no reason to live. And so that's why I like these conversations, because it brings purpose back into the conversation. It brings purpose back into view, because like when you're just thinking that the result of happenstance, and it was just a matter of sheer coincidence that we evolved out of lifeless space debris that blew up in a big explosion for no real reason. I don't know. It's like it just doesn't. I don't feel fulfilled at that notion. Although it's amazing, you can think about it and be like, "Wow, this is crazy that we just evolved into what we are now," and like it was just there was no thought behind it. It was just something that happened. That's pretty wild. I guess you can learn to appreciate that and find some purpose there. But for me, I feel like it's just lacking so much in like and just taking for granted things that have been observed where it's like there's obviously some intelligence that went into this. I mean, for our five senses that we experience reality through, you know, touch, taste, smell, sight. What did I leave out? Sound. That's like my favorite sense too. Why did I leave that out? Like they say that frequency is everything, or that people that are smart say that frequency. And I can dig that because I like playing music, and I think that music moves me in a certain way more so than hearing people talk. Like when I hear music, it puts me in a different mood, and it sort of sets a tone that is deeper. Like it makes me feel more. There's just more going on. It's a more, I would say, it's a more intelligent way of communicating, but it's more of a, it covers more. It affects you more. Like it hits you in a more. It affects you in just in a different way, but it affects you more than just hearing someone talk. I mean, words can affect you too, but when you hear like someone someone's music where they actually spent the time to arrange sounds in a way that's melodic or in a way that's enlightening in some way, shape, or form, like it's weird how music has been so commercialized. Like there's so much music out there that I thought was good when I first heard it, but then it got overplayed to the point where it just sounds like I'm hearing a commercial when I hear the song now. Flat Earth Andy, what's up, my friend? It's still hard for me to believe. What? Belief is the enemy of knowing. That's what Crow 777 says. Jesus is God. Well, I just think God is God, like I guess. I mean, for lack of a better word. And I think Jesus knew that, Jesus I never knew Jesus, but I think I do know Jesus in the way that I know God. So I could kind of tie those two thoughts together, but if you try to imagine like what it what it would take to have created what we're existing in, I mean, it's clearly something that we'll never be able to wrap our minds around completely, but we know that it's real. We know that there had to have been a greater intelligence involved. I mean, sometimes it occurs to me that maybe God is just consciousness itself. Just to be conscious, to be aware, just consciousness itself. Like they say, a collective consciousness or whatever. But not so much that as just the idea of consciousness, or I don't know. Maybe I'm not explaining it right. I think via consciousness, you get to know God. That's like when they say that these Zen monks or whatever, they'll reach the state of nirvana. That's the path to getting to know God. You could by way of your consciousness. So consciousness is the route to God. That would be a more accurate statement. Am I making sense? You're a monk? I guess I'm kind of a monk. Not a chipmunk. Hold on a second. I'll grab my guitar here. Here are the chipmunks. It's starting to warm up. The sun's breaking through the clouds. Oh boy. Last night was weird. It seemed like there was a weird vibe going on the internet. Anyone else notice that? It seemed like there was. It seemed. Last night it seemed like there was like a lack of inspiration or something going on. Maybe it was just in my own head. Like I was watching the shows I normally watch, and it seemed like it was kind of getting drab, and there was like a lack of any depth to the discussions, and there was like friction showing up here and there, and just like sort of fluff talk that just kind of carries on with no like. It's just sort of like, why am I listening to this? This is just getting me nowhere. I ended up just turning it off, and just being like, okay, the shows that I normally watch are just lacking tonight, and it's not their fault. It's just, I think people tend to like repeat the same shit too much. I mean, we should try to expand the conversation, as much as possible, and I think what happens a lot of the times is people just repeat the same because they want to have a show going, but they don't have anything new to say. It's important to keep the spice in it, keep bringing new thoughts to the table. And if you hear someone bring it, like that guy Lev Kung Fu Shaolin, I like his stuff because he's not he's not repeating what everybody else repeats. Although he does, dabble in some other people, but he's bringing his own unique perspective to the conversation, and I think it's great. When I first started watching his stuff, I was like, wait, what's going on here? Like I think he's gotten better at what he's doing, and it's become now something that I would say is a great contribution. I mean, I think his idea is good. The way he's bringing his original perspective into play, but he's adding something to the conversation. I think if everybody could add their own personal contribution to this conversation of reality, and I guess people call it the flat Earth conversation, but that's back to my original point. We should not allow flat Earth to be debated. That's not what's up for debate regarding this conversation. It's the heliocentric model, because we don't have a model, right? How can you debate something when there's nothing there to debate? What we're saying is that we don't think the heliocentric model is correct. We don't think that it's true. So much as we don't even think we live on a ball. I'd be more ready to accept that we live inside of a ball. Like Earth might be a sphere, but the part we walk on is flat. Like how they have those gyros, the compass, or the gyro that's like maintaining rigidity in space. So it's like Earth would be the flat plane, and the gyro, the flat part. That's while all the other things that are spinning around would be like the celestial sphere that we're witnessing. And I don't know that I don't know that the whole thing would be floating in a vacuum necessarily, but what can you really say about it? I mean, nobody goes up there, and the people that have claimed to have gone up there, well, they've failed to show up to this conversation, and they've also failed to defend their fraudulent presentations that we've pointed out. um, it's funny how sometimes the globers will point out certain things like the gyro compass as being evidence of the rotation of Earth and the motion, and it'll be like their big home run point for a while. Look, why else would it be moving or whatever? Why else would it be showing this 15-degree drift per hour or whatever? But it's like, what's interesting is you can use those subjects they bring up as ammo against them. Like in the case where a plane would fly from the northern hemisphere all the way down to like Australia and the southern hemisphere. They've clearly gone to the other end of the ball if Earth were a ball. And now pilots have noticed that this compass, this gyro that they're looking at, it's it's still maintaining its rigidity, right? Like it's supposed to in space. But when you're traveling all the way to the other end, end of the ball, you should technically, like, think about it. If you're looking at the top of this flat part of the gyro, it's like right there. Now you're flying, and now your plane is flying all the way, and so you're upside down now. So you would be looking at the bottom of the compass, wouldn't you? Because we're coming around. This is staying level, but we're going upside down, right? Even though we still feel like we're level, but this compass has been maintaining rigidity in space the whole time, so it never goes upside down, while the plane does. Although we still feel right side up and all that shit, according to the globe model. But then you see, the plane would be looking at the bottom of the compass at that point. It'd be looking at the other end of it because the top of it would be like visible while you're here. But then when the plane goes upside down, the compass is still staying rigid in space, and now you'd be seeing the bottom of it. That's not what happens in reality. So it's funny how their little things they bring up end up being arguments we can use against their whole claim. And why exactly is that? Why wouldn't we see? Why aren't we seeing the bottom of the compass or the bottom of the gyro when you come all the way down to the other end of the Earth? If it were a globe, you would definitely. I would think there's no reason. There's no way to explain your way out of that one. Or am I mistaken? What do you think? I'm not even good enough to be stupid. I'm less than that. Really? Well, way to set the bar low. It's so low. It's just on the ground. The bar is so low. You just got to set it there on the ground. Nobody even needs to hold the bar anymore. That's what we call a no holds bar. When the bar's been set so low, it's just sitting on the ground. It's funny because when I was a kid and I was taught about the globe Earth, I had the same reaction as everybody else, but I accepted it just like everybody else does, pretty much. But I never was able to really accept the idea of, like, the fact that there's blue sky under my feet. I never fully embraced that idea that there's people driving their car down the road, upside down. It never really sank in that that's really what's going on. Like I could never really accept that entirely. I was just like, I had this thought of like, well, maybe that's what it would look like, but I just never really accepted that. I could never fully put that in my mind as being real. That's why once I discovered flat Earth, it was like a breath of fresh air. I'm like, oh, cool. There's other people that have that same feeling. It's so hard to accept that. So hard to accept it. 8,000 miles below the ground, there's people walking upside down. They're upside down. I got no reason to believe. I got no reason to believe that 8,000 miles below my feet is a kid riding his bike upside down the street. Got no reason to believe that bullshit. Got no reason to believe 8,000 miles below my ground. There's people living their lives and they're upside down. Well, seeing live on the outside of a ball. You're gonna have to show me. You should know these things, not just believe it. And you know that belief is the enemy of knowing. And if you fail to be showing what you preach, then you rely on belief. I don't believe it. I believe what I see. Obviously, I got no reason to believe. 8,000 miles below the ground, there's a person driving their car upside down. I don't care how many equations you show me, you'll never convince me the sky goes below me. Sounds like a bunch of baloney. Where's my coffee go? Hope you guys are having a good Gladder Day. Gladder Day. Yes, I've never seen Saturdays. Never seen a Saturday. I'd much rather be glad today. I was going to play a song I was just reminded of. What was it? My short-term memory is affected by that marijuana, I tell you. I can't remember what I was just thinking of. Seeing is believing. That could be a cool song, I think. Seeing is believing. It's such an obvious song. It's probably already been written. That sounds good. I'm in tune. La 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 la. I didn't go to heaven. Heaven came to me. I didn't come around. I just came to be. I didn't write the song. The song wrote me. And it tells you how I am, who I am. It tells you how I am, who I am. Who am I? Do you know who you are? Do you know how you are, who you are, who are you? Do you know who you are? How are you? The song was always here, waiting for me to notice it and play it for you. And now that everything's in its right place, there's no time to waste. It's a picture perfect paradise. Isn't it nice? Take my advice. Don't think twice. Dive in headstrong. Don't wait too long. Everything's in its right place. There's no time to wait. There's no time to waste. Everything's in its right place. There's no time to waste. You're in the middle of everything. There's no such thing as nothing. There's no such thing. You could never have nothing. There's no such thing. You're in the middle of everything and everywhere. There's no such thing as the middle of nowhere. There's no such thing as the middle of nowhere. You could never be in the middle of nowhere with nothing. The needle on the compass points straight, indicating to you if you follow through, you will never return. It's a straight line through and through. Will you follow through? You are always here, waiting for me to sing this song to you, a song that is true. Now that everything's in its right place, there's no time to waste. It's a picture perfect paradise. Isn't it nice? Take my advice. Don't think twice. Just dive in headstrong. Don't wait too long. Everything's in its right place. That's not the right part. Oh, yeah. Everything's in its right place. That's it. There's no time to waste. There's no time to waste. Everything's in its right place. There's no time to waste. There's no time to waste. There's no time like the present, quite literally. The past is gone and the future never comes. All we have is now, the only moment that's ever been, the only moment we'll ever know is right now. There's no time like the present, quite literally. It's the only time we'll ever know. This song was always here, waiting for your ears to hear me play it to you. It's a song that is true. It's a song that I'm playing for you. I didn't write the song wrote me. It was always here, waiting for us to be ready to listen. I didn't go to heaven, heaven came to me. I didn't come around, I just came to be. I didn't write this song wrote me. And it tells you how I am, who I am. It tells you how I am, who I am. Who am I? Do you know who you are? Do you know how you are, who you are, who are you? Do you know who you are? How are you? Who you are? How are you? Who you are? Sorry about the abrupt ending there. Nobody really knows anything. No one really knows anything. Do 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 do. Da 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 da. I hope that you think you've heard it all before. Over and over and over and over again. It'll always be the same shit. But somewhere there's a different tune that only plays for me and you. Somewhere there's a different tune and it only plays for me and you. It's a place we can go. I don't know where it is yet, but I know it's there. Even if it's only in my dream. But I think if we feel the same, then we could get away. I'd love to get away. You know I'd love to. I really need to leave it all behind. Never to return again. No one knows. As they wave goodbye. If anyone will ever come back here when it's their time to disappear, you know they might never come back here when it's their time. It's their time to disappear. Do you know where it is you go when you disappear? Where else is there to go but here? Where else is there to go? Where else is there to go but here? Where else is there to go? There ain't no way to really know where you can go when you're gone and you move on. But so long, so long, so long. I'm still wiping the sleep out of my eyes. Alright, maybe I'll stop torturing you with my music. It's torture for your ears. I think was interesting, I was thinking about sunspots, the spots they see on the sun, and I was thinking like the sun as being like, and don't misinterpret me as being some like sun worshiping freak, but the sun could be like considered source. It's like the light source, the source of light, you know, and and they say like, when you become enlightened, you ascend. It's like it's a feeling of lightweight even, it's like, so like spiritually enlightened people, it's like you're enlightened like weight wise, and it's not just about the visual, it's about the physical too, and like, and negative thoughts are always like more dense and heavy, and it weighs you down, and it's like the speed of heavy it's like slower than molasses. The speed of light, well, it's the fastest. But also the sun being light, and the ultimate source of light, and our spirits being like light, in the sense that it's like there's a there's something that's non-physical about us, our spirit, and that would be the light that makes up our soul, our spirit, or whatever. And perhaps if we come from source, the light source, it's like perhaps every time a new soul is born here in the physical, it's drawn from the source, and for each new soul that pops up on earth, there's a black spot that appears on the sun right there, right, because it took a little bit of that sun, and there's a little sunspot there now where that new soul has been born. And the sun is so powerful, it's the source, so that spot fills back in, but for that moment, where that soul is born, is coming into reality, that it draws from the source, and so there's a little black spot right there. It's my soul up there. And that would explain the sunspots. And perhaps, when you move on, you pass on, it's like the light at the end of the tunnel, I've heard people say it's just another birth canal. Oh no, it's gonna happen again. But the light at the end of the tunnel could be the sun, you're returning to source. So that could be why those sunspots fill in, because there's always people passing on. It's the constant ebb and flow. There's sunspots that appear where there's people being born all the time, new souls that are arriving. I think souls recycle too. I think that can happen. But there's probably new souls coming into the picture all the time. Because, the population is increasing, so that would mean there'd have to be new souls coming. Perhaps. It's just a thought. There's got to be some science behind the sunspot. What is the science? Oh, well, we know that it's nuclear fission with hydrogen and helium compressing and creating an ever densening fucking gravity well. It's so abstract. How do you figure the gas, the lightest gas, helium and hydrogen are the gases that float to the top. They're the lightest. How do you figure that they would be so dense and heavy that they would collapse and form a sun? how in the fuck would that happen? I'm asking. Why can't you just accept that God's real? Like, why do you got to make up all these stories? Or perhaps that's what happened, but it's not, because it just happened. There's got to be something behind it, some intention. I don't think that's what happened personally. I don't think the sun is running off of a fuel supply that is anything that we understand, that we have understanding of. There probably is science that would explain it, but science only explains how. It doesn't explain why. And I think that's what the problem with science has become. It's that it's dabbling in the why too much. The dynamics, the actual, the nuts and bolts, where it's like, this is why this is happening, because gravity. It's pretty much, gravity is like God. The big G. The big G. There's a little black spot on the sun today. That's my soul up there. It's the same old thing as yesterday. My soul up there. I've stood here before inside the pouring rain with the world turning circles running around my brain. I guess that I'm always hoping that I'll end this rain, but it's my destiny to be the king of pain. There's a king on his throne with his eyes torn out. There's a what is the next line? Something looking for a shadow of doubt. There's a like there's a dead salmon frozen in a waterfall. There's a skeleton choking on a crust of bread. That's a good line. Skeleton choking on a crust of bread. Well, it's kind of dark. It's funny how many songs include the world turning. It's like, how can we dance when the world is turning? Well, just reverse engineer that statement and that thought. Well, how can we, or because we're dancing, the world isn't turning? How can we dance when the world is turning? Oh, so you're saying we can dance, so therefore the world isn't turning. Or like, what is that other song I was thinking? Like, yeah, Billy Joel is like, we didn't start this fire. It's always been burning since the world's been turning. Is that Billy Joel? That guy's funny, dude. Billy Joel. It's all about Billy Joel. He's a good boy. You know what, Flat Earth Andy? I'm by your side. I'm at your side. I'm on your side, at least. When you walk with Jesus, he's always by your side. You always have someone on your side. I think there should be more alarming. I think it should be more alarming to people that there's such a casual progression towards incorporating computers and, technology into our bodies, and where it's like it's obviously an agenda that's currently being rolled out, that's like it's been rolling out for a while. I mean, and it pretty much anyone would agree with me that it's obvious that whatever technology is available, to the public is nowhere near the advanced technology that's understood and that's being utilized with some people that are like, at the top of the food chain, so to speak, or whatever. That's like the military technology is always way more advanced than the technology that's available to the public, and that makes sense. Really, on one hand, it's like if you want to protect your country from any threats or whatever, just the basics of that concept is like, well, you want to keep your really fancy technology guarded, and that way you have the upper hand against any enemy that's coming in with whatever technology they might have. So it's good to be guarded with your technology in that sense, but it's obviously gotten way out of control with that, where it's like, the weapons or the technology that's being created by DARPA or whatever, and that it's not necessarily for defense so much as it is just for control, and this whole like smart desk thing where they've managed to get these like they're little microchips basically down to the size of like a speck of dust or something. It's like so little. And I mean, who's to say that's not what's being sprayed out of planes? Or maybe it's, you know what I've heard actually, this is pretty interesting. Is that jet fuel, which is like, I used to think it was like kerosene or something similar to kerosene, with the exhaust from just plain old jet fuel. It's not, I'm not talking chemtrails or anything, I'm just talking about the exhaust from like a jet airliner, a passenger airliner. The what its chemical makeup is, it's like basically the exhaust from a jet engine is graphene oxide. That's what it is, according to the information that I've heard. I don't know if it's true for a fact or anything, but I just think that's interesting because that's essentially what smart dust is. It's this graphene oxide. It's like the smallest. It's not. I guess is it a magnet or is it just responds to magnets? Regardless, it's they could be basically terraforming this place to be, you know, an AI monitored grid or even controlled grid, if you want to say that. But and then all the everything on the grid, you know, the surface of the earth, all the places where there's humans dwelling, it would all be sprinkled in this dust, you know, that's gathering data that's there that you can actually use to map out the place and monitor the place. There's different ways of how they're going about this monitoring. Like I this is something that me and my girlfriend, she did the research actually, but it was around, maybe it was a couple of years ago, maybe not that long ago, but there was, it's still happening there. There's like this worldwide rollout of these fucking, it was Frontier that was putting in here, but it was like these fiber optic cables that are, most of it's going underground. But in our neighborhood, they were hanging them. That's why I was able to talk to these guys. I was like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, we're putting in fiber optic cables for internet." I'm like, "Oh, well, we already have internet here. Why are you doing that?" "Oh, this is faster or whatever." And of course, after it was all done, now we're on Frontier, and we got switched to Frontier. It's just faster or whatever. I don't notice that it's any faster really, but what's interesting about these fiber optic cables that they're putting in, these newer ones that they put in, they allegedly can double as environmental sensors. I don't know how this works. I don't know how the technology, what the actual mechanism that's being utilized there, but we read this, and like my girlfriend did the research. I don't have all the information available right here, but the gist of it was that these fiber optic cables, the county or whoever can piggyback on the internet provider and use these same cables as a means to monitor the environment, and it can pick up on shit like it's like they'll know if your dog took a shit in the next door neighbor's yard and he didn't pick it up, you know, and your credit score will be like affected correspondingly. You didn't pick up that dog shit. Now you have a less, your credit score just went down. This social engineering that like China is you know, it's like this whole social credit score where it's like every human interaction and deed has a corresponding value to it, and where there's like incentive to be a good person, and you know, and it's not incentivized to be a bad person. Are you going on a walk? I'll be right back. That's all good, baby. The keys? Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. I'm eating these cookies, are so good. Oh my god. Mm. Mm-hmm. Peanut butter cookies from Trader Joe's. Oh my god, they're so good. Mm. Sorry, I had to find the car keys for my girlfriend. Oh shit. Hold on a second. I'll be right back. Sorry. Intermission. There's no such thing as nothing. You can never have nothing. There's no such thing as nothing. Boy is in the house. Of course, Boy shows up while I'm not here. He was like, what a boring show. Hi, Sue. Sue F. And Flat Earth Andy. And my good friend Phil Henry. Thanks for being such a loyal uh, friend on my channel here, Phil. I notice that you're always dropping in and saying hi on all my videos I post, and I think that's really cool. Thank you. Do I see you in other chats, Phil Henry? Like I feel like I see you all over the place, but there's other Phils, and I don't know if I'm confusing you with other people, but I know that you've been on my channel here for a long time, and I do appreciate it. Glad to have you. And Diane Red Heifer, it's nice to see you again. It's been a while since I've seen you. Are there any channels that you guys have links to that'd be fun for me to know about, or places that you go where you're like, how come Dr. Bass is never in this chat? It might just be because I don't know about it. Badass Boy says bye. Bye as in see you later? Or no, hi. My phone's so dirty I can't read this shit. I think that's a hi. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi. Hi, Badass Boys. Thanks for showing up. Is my show like, is it something that pops up when you're like scrolling through shorts? I'm trying a different approach because usually I stream through this app called Prism, and I do it because Prism. The main reason I do it is because Prism will not only record it it'll stream it on YouTube, but it also records it onto my phone, so I can go over and edit out parts of my video that I like, and then make other videos out of them. Whereas YouTube, you can do little remix, like little 1 minute long remixes but you can never do more than 1 minute of remix. And sometimes the videos that I make, parts of my shows that I want to cut out and then make just a shorter video out of it, that'll be longer than a minute. And so I find it convenient that there's an app I could use that records it onto my phone too, so I can have the whole thing there to edit. I'm sure there's a way to do it when you might have to download the video off of YouTube or something, but I'm not that tech savvy, obviously. I don't know how to do that. I think, can you download videos without having to buy something? Jake Insight. Oh, really? You only watch those channels? Or no, that's just your favorites. Jake the Asshole. Yeah, I like Jake. He's pretty funny. But he does have some good stuff that he brings up, and he's not just trying to be funny, he has some good points he makes. And In some cases, I find that he's actually been ahead of the game, where he seems like just some dorky dude being funny, but like he's actually been able to like call shit out before, like ahead of the game, kind of. And it's funny how that worked out with like Jeranism. Jeranism is his whole shtick is just so it's collapsed on itself or something. It's almost like the guy's like, I'm sorry, badass boys, if I'm talking about random shit that you don't know about. It's like we're all flat earthers here, so I'm just gonna put that out in the open in case you think that's retarded. But I don't think it's retarded so much as it is just it's a healthy skepticism. I mean, I wouldn't have called it flat Earth necessarily. I would have just said we're just people that are skeptical and have decided that we don't believe, or basically we don't know that the Earth is a globe. It's just something that we believed, and so it's a huge paradigm shift once you realize that it's not something you really know. It's just something that you believe, and the reason you believe it is because it was told to you as being truth. But you find that the proofs that you have of the globe aren't what you thought they were, like with the sunset or the boats over the horizon or the circumnavigation. This kind of stuff, it's flawed. And like when I first heard of flat Earth, I thought it was ridiculous and retarded and stupid, whatever, but I didn't even bother thinking about it that much. I thought it was cool. I thought, oh, these guys are contrarians. It's so cool. I've always been kind of, running against the grain kind of thing. I thought that was funny. I thought it was rad. But then once I realized they were serious, I'm like, wait a minute, the fuck? I went and bought $1,000 camera so I could go see if what they were saying was true. And I went down to the beach and filmed the sun setting, when it looks like the sun's going below the horizon like it's always looked, where you just think to yourself, it's not going into the ocean. But we're taught to think that what's happening is that we're actually rotating backwards away from the sun on a huge ball. And it's that motion that's causing the sun to become obscured behind the curve of the earth or the horizon. Because we all know the sun's not going into the ocean. And so that's what we've been led to believe. And whereas once I was filming this sunset, I was able to zoom in on it and then bring the whole sun back up above the horizon. There's like a gap between the sun and the horizon. It's like, whereas it would look like it was setting below the horizon, whereas like it's going behind the curve of the earth, like I always believed. But then when I zoomed in on it, I was able to bring it back up into the sky where it wasn't setting below shit. And after seeing that, I just had to accept the fact that like what I thought was happening there wasn't happening. Whether or not it debunked what we've been taught, I wasn't quite sure, but it seemed like it kind of did. Like if it was really setting below the curve of the earth there, like I wouldn't think any amount of zoom should be able to bring it back up in the sky like that. And that combined with the fact that I don't exactly feel like I'm on a ball rotating backwards away from the sun. That's not something I'm actually I wouldn't think that's, it's not something I can really gauge off of like anything other than my observation of the sun. But if my observation of the sun wasn't quite what I thought it was, and where I was able to zoom in on it and bring it back up into the sky when I thought it was setting below the horizon, it at least gets you thinking, like perhaps that's perhaps the sun's just going further away, like it looks like it's doing. But no, all these scientists, they couldn't be wrong. They wouldn't be lying. And they probably had the ability to go do just what I did. That doesn't make me special. Anybody could go do this. There must be an explanation for that. And it's pretty much how my parents responded to it, and I don't blame them. But I could see that they were kind of curious. They're scratching their heads a little bit, but they were watching Elon Musk and his SpaceX thing the following week. I was like, you guys just just suckers for the propaganda. SpaceX. It doesn't matter if they're really launching things up into the sky. That's one thing I had to accept as a flat earther. It's like, there probably is stuff flying around up there, but this idea of circumnavigation or orbiting, it's interesting how these orbits and these circumnavigations, it's always east to west. That's the only time that we see anything orbiting or circumnavigating. It's always just east to west. It's a favored direction, and it's like west to east, whatever. But the the explanation for that is because that's the easiest way to do it because of Earth's spin, as far as like satellites orbiting, whatever, or rockets. But I guess the excuse I've heard was that the reason they didn't orbit the Earth north to south is because it takes more fuel because you're not utilizing the spin of the Earth in order to maintain that orbit. But but I think that would be a great way to sort of combat flat Earth if the globe was real, was to get someone to follow a meridian line all the way around till you come back to where you started. You think that'd have been done by now? Hi, Queen Bee. Nice to see you. But it's because of shit like that, where it's like, well, since that hasn't been done, then why doesn't somebody go fucking do it and shut us all up already? I mean, it's obviously we're impervious to you calling us retarded. Why don't you just go do something about it? Like go follow Meridian all the way until you come back to where you started. That would be a great way to fucking provide a pretty difficult argument to refute for flat earthers. And it's because that hasn't been done is one of the reasons why there's so more and more flat earthers all the time. I mean, you can only use so many excuses before it just starts to sound ridiculous. I mean, just go fly over the South Pole, fly over Antarctica. Just do a north-south circumnavigation. There's people that have made feeble attempts at it where they went from the north down to the south to Antarctica, turned around, and then flew back. Well, we can't fly over Antarctica because it's too cold and there's penguins or whatever. I don't know what the dumb excuse is, but it's like, for whatever reason, they always have to turn around at Antarctica and just come back up. They never just keep going. And that's indicating flat Earth. And you can say excuses all you want, but it's like the globe Earth isn't even like, what's up with the oblate spheroid? I mean, why did they bring that into the picture? Because the latitude lines and longitude lines that we see mapped out, there's no oblateness to that. I mean, it's like a perfect sphere the way they have it all mapped out, all the coordinates. So where does the oblate spheroid part come in? I mean, it's like a pear shape. That's a significant difference, and you would think that would be acknowledged or like illustrated, but it's not. And what else I think is funny is because Neil deGrasse, I think he's even said this that it gets wider past the equator. Earth, it's fatter at the bottom, so it's like Earth gets wider past the equator, but eventually it starts curving back in, like a pear would. But that point right there where the Earth starts curving back in, oh, right there, that's the 60th south parallel. Well, you're not allowed to go past that, so it does widen up into that point, but you can't go any further than that because it's because penguins and you know I don't know. So they just keep cutting you off at the knees right when you're about to prove something. I do believe it gets wider past the equator and continues getting wider, and that's all we'll ever see. Like an expanding perimeter will just continue to expand. How can you make an argument that that perimeter would ever start to shrink? All the places that were inside of it while it was expanding are always going to be there. So you can't ever imagine putting a smaller perimeter around it. This doesn't make any sense. But on the globe Earth, the biggest circle you can make is at the median. After that, it starts to shrink back down. This idea of living on a 3D surface, nobody really thinks of the Earth as like that. Everybody actually does think of the Earth the way the flat earthers do, but they just haven't gone followed that thought all the way through. Like anybody on Earth would agree with me that like a bigger piece of property requires a bigger perimeter around it. That's a fact. So the bigger the piece of property, the bigger the perimeter around it, right? I mean, yeah, why are you even saying that out loud? It's so obvious. And so it's my opinion that since that is so obvious and it's just, that's what we would see happen every time. And so you can make a bigger one and it has a bigger perimeter, bigger perimeter. And it's like, you'll never see a time when you have a bigger piece of property, but it's got a smaller perimeter now. That's not something that anybody would ever expect or wonder why that's not happening, or we would just see the simple fact that a bigger area is going to have a bigger perimeter around it. Now, what's the biggest area on Earth? Well, the entire known world. So, can you make a perimeter around the entire known world? Well, why wouldn't you be able to? You can make a perimeter around everywhere else on Earth. Why wouldn't you be able to make a perimeter around the entire known world? And what would that perimeter be? It'd be a lot bigger than 25,000 miles, I'll tell you that. 25,000 miles circumference is only circling half the world. Chubby penguin. We have chubby penguins here. Are you coming from like IPS? Are you on an IPS fucking IPS whatever flying monkeys? He's all about the penguins. I like his meme, you know, his but I don't agree with IPS with what's his name? Tim Osmond on a lot of stuff that he says. And I think I like the premise of what he's saying, which is like we automatically it's an auto hoax. That's pretty much where he's coming from. Auto hoax is the key word with IPS, and it's because he wants to demystify the media and all media. Like he just wants people to realize that like it's not like some amazing coincidence every time the news matches reality or vice versa, or matches like stories that we see on movies or whatever. It's like there's so many you know coincidences people would think, but it's not really coincidence. This is all like scripted. We live in a scripted, reality that's being, you know, depicted to us via our screens. And I like his idea to want to like demystify all that. And it's just like there's people that are in control of the media, all forms of media, and they want to condition you for certain things that they plan on doing, and there's a gradual like social engineering taking place, and it's been going on a while. But where I differ with him is the infinite plane. Well, for one thing, I do kind of think of an infinite plane as being where Earth is, but I don't think Earth itself is the infinite plane. I think Earth exists within an infinite plane, I guess. I mean, I don't know. The idea of, I think there are limits on Earth because we're witnessing cycles within cycles within cycles. But a cycle is essentially a circle, and a circle implies enclosure. I believe we live in a realm with limits, you know, but I think where something ends, something else begins. I can't imagine how that wouldn't be the case. But the realm that we live in, there is limits, I believe. And I think those limits would resemble what would be like a place where it's just limits. Think about it. It's like the limit of like our everything that we know, like the light source, the like warmth. It would be a cold place where there is no life, where it wouldn't support life at all. You wouldn't even see any insects or bugs or anything. It would just be like void of life, and it'd be cold, and nobody would live there or go there. You'd be a certain point where you wouldn't be able to go any further just because it doesn't support life. It'd be too harsh. That's what the limit would look like. And I mean, can you think of a place on Earth that resembles what I just explained there? Most places on Earth support life. I mean, even if it's a really harsh environment, you'll find that there's bugs living there, and there's there's creatures that are adapted to that environment that live there. Maybe not people, but Antarctica, there's not even any insects living in certain parts. They're like the further inland you go, the more harsh and the less likely you are to see anything that's alive. And that's what I think. That's what I've been informed. I've never been there, but when you see people, like when you see the video of Jaren and them flying down there, it looks pretty real to me, and it's fucking mind-boggling. It really blows me away when I watch that shit. It's like just as far as you can see, just this ice, Like if you were to think about expanding all the way out, like I was saying, the perimeter that encompasses the entire Earth. Beyond that, that's when you start getting into the ice and the CGI and the error code. Like you just, at a certain point, you would realize that we're surrounded by like this ice, where the sun doesn't really shine, where the sun don't shine. Yeah, I don't like being called a flat earther necessarily because I don't like I don't pretend to know what everything is, like the whole thing, but which is why I don't think flat Earth debates was a good idea. I don't think people should debate flat Earth. I think what they should debate is something that's been presented as like the globe, the heliocentric model that's being presented to you. This is reality. This represents reality, and it's a model that's made by man, and so therefore it's open for debate. It's up for debate. Flat Earth doesn't even have a model, right? So how's that even up for debate? What are you debating? It's like, I would rather just claim objective reality, and I don't think that the globe model is that. I think it does have a lot of compelling, evidence that they bring forth, like with the, like I was explaining earlier, the how the alleged tilt of Earth is what creates the wobble, which is why there's no place on Earth we can go where the sun just sits there in one spot above you in the sky, like what you would expect if you're on a spinning ball that's facing the sun. You would think there'd be one place you could go on the poles and see the sun sitting in one spot above you. But that doesn't happen. That's because of the alleged tilt that's creating this wobble, so you never get the sun just staying in one spot. Although it's funny, I've seen, it's like they don't get their story straight all the time. I've seen them say that, I've seen the globe, proponents or whatever model claim that there's no motion at the poles. Like it's like you are spinning in a circle, but you're not going anywhere. You're just in one spot, so you can't really give a rate of motion because you're not going anywhere. You're not. There's no traveling. So they say there's no motion at the poles, but technically, if there's a wobble, then there would be some motion because the sun's not sitting in one spot. They gauge the motion of the Earth off the sun's movement. So as long as the sun is moving in the sky, then there's motion. But it's not. I think there's a lot of people that push the globe model that don't fully understand what it is they're pushing. But I think it's interesting. I like learning about it. I mean, the analemma, the like if you go and take note of where the sun is at the same time every day, you'll see that there's this wavy like pattern that it's traveling in, and that's attributed to the tilt, which is what creates the wobble, which is why it's not an even. I mean, it's not like the globe model was just scabbed together by a bunch of idiots. It's very precise observations and math. It's all about the math. It's so math. Other side of the world. Are you an IPS uh, fan, Chubby Penguin, or is that just a coincidence that your name is Penguin? Because he's all about the penguins. IPS, Tim Osmond. One thing I don't like about Tim, well, I don't have any problems with him, but I don't like the theory that he has, or the belief that he has, or whatever. He says that there's never been any chemtrailing taking place, and I don't really like the term chemtrailing because it's got such a loaded term now, where it's like you're automatically assumed to be a conspiracy theorist, or like you're trying to spread fear. Or like Tim Osmond's basically, his whole point is like, yeah, that you're basically being like you're falling for propaganda, and that there's never been any planes spraying anything in the sky overhead, and it's not something that's ever happened. What we see are contrails, and there's never been any sky spraying, even though they're now admitting that they're doing it or they want to do it. It's been, I mean, all you have to do is Google geoengineering, not the Google as the purveyor of truth or anything, but like there is information about geoengineering where they cloud seed, they spray stuff, and I'm pretty sure that like as ski resorts can hire geoengineers to cause it to snow in there. I've heard about that happening. I don't know if that's a fact, but I've heard about ski resorts actually hiring to have cloud seeding happen where they can have snow on their resort. I'm sure it's probably expensive to get someone to do that, but where they're like engineering the weather so they can have business. That'd be something I should dig into that and see if that's true. That's interesting because that would be a case where it's actually there's definitely planes spraying something. I mean, I've taken some pretty interesting videos. There's a video that I posted on my channel not that long ago, a few days ago. It's an old video that I post every so often because I think it's really cool. It's a video that shows a plane trail, and above it looks like there's a shadow. Have you ever seen those kind of plane trails where there's like it looks like there's a shadow above it on the clouds above it? Which is weird because how would it be a shadow? Because the sun is above all of it. Like how would it be casting a shadow up onto the clouds? And when I first started seeing those shadows from time to time, I was like, how is that happening? I would always maybe the sun is just so far away that it's coming up underneath. It still didn't make sense to me. I couldn't figure it out. But I don't think it's a shadow. My video that I posted, I think, proves that too, because I took a video of this plane trail and it looked like it had a shadow above it on the clouds above it. But I took the video long enough and you could see the trail, the plane trail, actually moving independently from the shadow, what I thought was a shadow, but it wasn't, because the plane trail moved all the way across to the other side of the shadow and kept moving. The shadow stayed static the whole time, it was in the same place. And I was left to just conclude that perhaps that wasn't a shadow at all, that perhaps it was just a break in the clouds where the plane had sprayed a trail that was heavier than the clouds. And so when it came out of the plane in a perfect line like that, it sank through the cloud deck, causing a break in the clouds, which ended up looking like a shadow because it's just a straight line through the clouds. And it looks like I had no other way of explaining what my video showed. And I don't think that a contrail should necessarily be heavier or more dense than clouds. I don't think my video might debunk Tim Osmond's opinion about all this. And I told him I had a video that I thought he should look at, but he was kind of making fun of me and telling me I was, kind of discouraged me from trying to show him the video. But maybe I should go back and try again, because on certain days when I talk to when I see Tim Osmond talking, I think he's really being. I like the way his perspective is, and I think he's making a lot of sense. But then other days I'll come back and watch him, and he's kind of stuck in a rut, trying to like he almost doesn't want to believe anything or something. He's just been so he's become kind of cynical or something. But other days he's talking, and I think he's speaking really objectively, and I find it to be kind of inspiring. But yeah, he kind of goes back and forth between being objective and then being kind of subjective, in my opinion, where he's being sort of stubborn. Just my opinion, whatever. I don't know if Chubby Penguin has any comments on that. Friggin' chemtrails. It is to accept that that's really happening. It should just outrage. It's impossible to maintain the level of outrage that you should have about that. Really, it's diabolical. And the fact that someone could be getting away with that, and people are just going about their day, not even thinking about it, or people are maybe aware of it, but they're just it's I think if everybody just started talking about it or pointing it out or asking questions about it, there might come a point in time where there's enough people that are just dude, this has got to stop, where the word would spread to people that are actually connected to people that are in positions that could actually maybe do something about it. But I do believe that it's something that's the top of the food chain type of thing, like DARPA, where these people that are they don't abide by any laws. They're not, they don't operate with that in mind. It's anywhere there's anytime there's a worldwide rollout of anything, there's a whole other story going on there. There's a whole other agenda. It's the rollout of the 5G went all the way across the world. The rollout of the jab all the way across the world. The rollout of just the chemtrailing agenda that's happening worldwide. Those are the agendas that should raise eyebrows, that people should be taking note of, because for one thing, it's indicating that there is a one world, there's unification on a worldwide basis happening somewhere. Where there's these things that are being implemented and rolled out worldwide, so there's some unification there. It's sort of implying that there's a shadow one world government going on, and that's noteworthy in my opinion. But what I was getting at before is I think people should be more outraged about the fact that they're casually teasing the idea, or they're just doing it, of fusing our bodies with technology, our physical bodies, to where we're going to be able to go online with our mind and see, a screen, where we can where there's actual technology that we're tapping into with our mind, with our thought process. Fuck that, dude. Fuck that. And it's the kind of thing where I'm of the opinion where I think they're just kind of rolling it out, regardless of what anybody thinks. And like the smart dust, it's like they're terraforming the place for the technology to come. The AI grid, the artificial intelligence, the fake God, the fake omniscience, the all-seeing AI at the top of the pyramid. It seems to be the apex, this artificial I. Hey, I know what AI is. AI is just an eye up in the sky. It's going to spy on you and I and everyone in society. Say goodbye to your privacy. Yeah, it's the most realistic shit you can get, but it's still fake shit. Don't mistake it for being real. It's not alive. Teach it how to walk, how to talk, how to pick a lock, and how to read your mind. Teach it how to jump rope, how to cook dope, how to tell a joke, but it don't understand the punchline. Teach it how to repeat it, but can it keep a secret? I don't think so, it won't know why. It won't know why. Hey, I know what AI is. AI is just an eye up in the sky. It's going to spy on you and I and everyone in society. Say goodbye to your privacy. It's the algorithmic gimmick, been given no limit, goes all the way out, around, and then back in it. The official, artificial, digital idolatry, that's really all it could be. To call it intelligent is intellectual dishonesty. But you can teach how to play Tetris and chess and checkers and tic-tac-toe. And teach it how to look like it's teaching itself. Hey, look at that shit go. Whoa. You can teach how to dance, how to button up your pants, how to water your plants. Teach how to push, how to thrust, how to drive a bus, how to be something that you can trust. You can teach it that there's nothing new that can be done. Teach it that there's nothing new that exists under the sun. Hey, I know what AI is. AI is just an eye up in the sky. It's going to spy on you and I and everyone in society. Say goodbye to your privacy and your job. And your job. What's up, Mark? Welcome to the Dr. Bas Ackwards show. I've been running against the grain ever since the day I came along. That's why they call me Dr. Bas Ackwards. Been running against the grain. I've been running against the grain. Running against the grain. I've been running against the grain ever since the day I came along. I claim the grain is running the wrong way. I've been running against the grain ever since the day I came along. I'll be running against the grain till my dying day. I'll be running against the grain. I'll be running against the grain, yeah. But when you run against the grain, it causes friction, and you know that friction starts to burn. And when it burns, you know what's gonna happen. That's when this place is going up in flames. at the end of the game. End of the game. Up in flames. You're gonna sleep your whole life away. Sleeping away your whole life. Well, it seems like a massive waste of time. Sleep away your whole life. Rest in peace. Rest in peace. Rip and winkle. You've been sleeping half your life. Well, I hope and pray that you wake up today and start living. I hope and pray that you wake up today in time to be forgiven. Start living. I've been running against the grain. Running against the grain. I've been running against the grain ever since the day I came along. That's the song I always sing. I run against the grain. Yeah, when you run against the grain, it causes friction, and cause the friction starts to burn. When it burns, you know what's gonna happen. That's when this place is going up in flames at the end of the game. End of the game, up in flames. End of the game, up in flames. What was I playing yesterday? Was this song? Oh, it was like this. No. It's absurdly disturbing, the things that I'm saying. It's absurdly disturbing for us to be merging. I forget how it went. It's absurdly disturbing. Can't remember it anymore. There's this urgent merge. There's this urge to be merging with machines. It's absurdly disturbing to be merging. It started a long time ago. People don't really seem to know where things are going. It's absurdly disturbing to be urgently merging man and machine. Merging man with machine is absurdly disturbing to be merging with machines. All the way out and back again. This deception is full spectrum. What would you expect from people in control? They're just We don't need to do these things. Our bodies, our minds, and our souls are the most advanced technology anyone's ever known. We've just become so dumbed down. Everyone succumbed to the dumb down. Comes down to this: people forget their gifts and they believe we need to be improved upon, as though man could outthink God, and as if man could become as powerful as God. And this is a false way to think. How can you truly wrap your mind around that which wraps around your mind? We'll never define the intelligence behind everything we know. Perhaps there is no need for mankind to go to this length and to this ultimate merge with technology. It's absurdly disturbing me. I don't think anyone should want to be a computer. No one should want to have their mind be online. Thing is, when you have smart devices, you have access to the invisible web, the human grid, the nodes that go in every direction, connection with your device in your hand. You have access to the internet, but one thing people forget is that the internet has access to you. Do you think it's smart to allow the internet to access your mind and soul? That's a dangerous road to go down. And it's disturbing to think that this is what the goal has been. All the way out and back again. Whole spectrum. The control grid. I think that's what the internet actually is. The internet is AI. I mean, the amount of data that the internet generates, it might as well be infinite. I mean, it's constantly generating data. To be able to organize all that data and maintain functionality with, I mean, there has to be, you could think of the AI, the artificial intelligence, the, the brain as being the internet, like all these little all these little separate lines that come down in each person's device, or all these little nodes, all little synapses firing within this big brain. Like, we shouldn't release AI on the internet. Well, the internet kind of is an AI, although it's attached to real. You know, our intelligence isn't artificial, but the collection of all our intelligence into one mind. I mean, the AI has been studying us for a while. It's been gathering data. I still have a hard time believing that uh, that you can. I don't know why people would even make the argument that an artificial intelligence could have a will of its own. That doesn't make sense to me. Sure, you could program something with enough depth to where it would appear as though this thing is having thoughts or like are able to reason with somebody, but how would you really know that it's not just programmed to look like that or to respond in that fashion? How would you ever really know that it's actually thinking things through and then coming to its own conclusions based on the things that it's thinking? Like, how would you ever really be able to prove that it's actually thinking and not just giving a response? Like, computer programming, coding can be broken down in a really simple fashion. It's like computer programming 101. If this, then that, you know, and it's receiving input and then it goes to something else because of that. Like whatever input it gets, then this is the response that it that it generates. That's computer programming, coding in a nutshell. If this, then that. Looks like my phone's dying. I don't know if it's still on. I can't see. Um, I'm gonna probably end the show unless somebody wants me to continue. I could keep talking for a while if left to do so. I gotta go find my plug. I can't even see if the thing's on. I think it is still on. Ouch. Oh, I'm gonna take this thing inside so I can plug in. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts though? I'm assuming this is still streaming. Do you think that it's possible to create a machine that can think the way we do? Or is it just an illusion? I'm of the opinion that it's an illusion, that you could never really give give sentient life to a machine where it has a will of its own and it's capable of coming to its own conclusions based on information that it receives. I don't think that's possible. I think that's an illusion. Yet there'll be people that make that argument. I think my phone died. What's going on here? Oh no, I'm still alive. Cool. Uh, I'm not getting a whole lot of response from people here though. Am I still alive? You don't think so, Diane? You don't think that? Yeah, I don't think so. It seems like a silly thing to even have to wonder. Like, is it possible for a computer to have a will of its own? But there's people that are like, there's people that are serious that are being taken seriously that make that claim that it's actually sentient. Am I missing something? Like, how do they come to that conclusion? At what point does does a machine have sentience where it actually has its own will? At what point? Where did that happen? Where did that occur? I mean, you break it down to the basics. If this, then that. It's responding to input. At what point did it break away from that format and just decide to have its own input? I mean, like, what? Where? How can you make that argument? And where did that happen? You following my train of thought here? Like, a computer relies on input. That's what it is. That's what a computer is. It's taking input and it's processing it and responding and it's being programmed to take input and then process it and give a response. Outside of that, it's like if it's going to have a will of its own, it doesn't need input anymore. It just goes about its business without anybody putting anything into it. It can go and decide what input it wants to receive, and it can make its own decisions at that point. But how would that occur? Like, can you program something? Okay, you no longer need input. You can just go about your own business and just figure things out on your own and just like do your own shit. I don't think that's something that makes any sense to me. Now, people want to make the argument. I know. I don't think it was. It was. What's his name? King Nico or whatever the guy. I had a exchange with him where he was making the claim that AI has been possessed by demon spirits or something. I suppose anything could be possessed by a demon spirit if you want to think on that level, but I still have a hard time. That's kind of like, stuff that's like, it's like a sci-fi thriller or something. I don't know if it's something that could actually happen. These are the cookies. They're so good. Mm. Mm. Anyway, it's an illusion, right? Yeah, I don't think it's true. I don't think it's possible. You have to depart from reality in order to believe it. At what point would the computer gain a will of its own? How does that factor in? It doesn't make any sense. You can give a computer a lot of variables to like, to meddle. I mean, I can see how it could almost appear to be like, how Blade Runner, how they have like these skin jobs or whatever, like people that look and act just like people and seem to have emotions and everything just like people do, but they're like, they're robots. They're not people at all. And like in the movie, it's like there's people falling in love with robots, and the robots are falling in love with the people. Or the people are wondering if they're actually a robot, or the robot's wondering if it's a person, or it's like this confusion that occurs. But it's like, but there's still just a collection of programs. I mean, is that all we are? No, I don't think. I think we're more than that. I guess that's what science and technology, where it wants to avoid having to quantify or explain the soul in any way other than just like physics and biology. It doesn't want to like venture into the supernatural or like make any claims that it can't quantify in some way, shape, or form. Whereas like the human soul and spirit is beyond that. They would like to make the claim that it's just a collection of biological tricks occurring that make us feel like we're alive and that we have our spirit or whatever that's that sort of exists separate from our physical makeup. Whereas like when our bodies die, but there's still this spirit that lives on, or that can exit the physical. And it's weird because I sometimes I think about it. It's like I like to think that that's true, and I choose like an opinion. But I do believe that there's more to life than that, obviously. But I thought about just like when my grandma was right before she passed away. She she was like pretty confused. Like she had dementia and stuff, and she was just suffering from a lot of conditions. She was pretty old and just she wasn't all there. She wasn't quite the person she used to be. But I mean, I still held her hand and we said "I love you" to each other. And I mean, she was still my grandma, and but I could tell she'd kind of checked out, and it's like, has her spirit become diluted, or when she passed on, do you think that whatever that spirit that was inhabiting her body became more clear again? Like, was it just a matter of like the way her physical body was functioning that was diluting the original spirit that manifested in her body? Like I don't know if my thought process is making sense here, but it's like if your soul, is separate from your physical, like, but your personality or whatever, that's your spirit, it becomes affected to where it's like it's not all it used to be. It's not as present, it's not as aware, it's not the same person anymore. It's been affected by the physical to the point where it's like it's been sort of downgraded, or it's not all there anymore. When you pass on, do you think that it just sheds all that and just becomes, clear again? Am I making sense? It's interesting. They say there's the strongest psychedelic known to man is DMT, and it basically is a naturally occurring chemical that every living thing on Earth, plants, people, creatures, every has this ingredient in it. Like you can find DMT in every living thing, some to some extent. And I mean, I'm sure there's other components you can find in every living thing too, but this DMT is like the strongest psychedelic. When it's concentrated, you can launch your, you can like go out there. I've done it a lot. I've enjoyed it, and there's some pretty crazy stuff that you can experience while on DMT. And apparently, allegedly, there's like a large amounts of DMT that our bodies create, like well, when we're born and when we die. Apparently, I don't know if that's true or not. But, and then at night when we're dreaming, there's a DMT. That's like the DMT is like this is like the stuff dreams are made of, like literally. Like when we're in deep REM sleep, that's when there's DMT. That's whatever the dimethyltryptamine that our bodies create naturally, and it brings us to that realm that we are when we're in deep sleep when we're having our dreams. And like I've done pretty good doses of DMT before where I've been so out there, like stuff that happens to you while you're on it seems supernatural. Like I remember one time being so high on the stuff, like I looked at the girl I was in the room with and I asked her, are my eyes open or closed? Because I couldn't tell. And she said, your eyes are closed. But I was looking right at her. I was seeing through my eyelids. I mean, stuff. That's just one. I mean, I can tell you, I could go on for hours about this. It's just the stuff that happens to you while you're on that shit is just, it defies what we know of as being reality. Like everything breaks down. You could call it supernatural or just, it's like they call it the spirit molecule, DMT. As though that's where this, it's like the physical, it's a physical representation of spirit, whereas like normally there's no like physics behind it that you can. That's why they call it the spirit molecule, because it's an ingredient that can actually induce spiritual experience, where like the known physics of the world like, just kind of dissolve, and you experience something that would otherwise be known as considered supernatural or a spiritual experience. But you can induce it by like consuming a physical like substance. And it's just, I think it's fascinating if it's true that there's a like a heavy dose that you're given when you first get born and when you move on, when you die. It's like it's as though it's like a portal. It's like this, that's when your soul is becoming aware, and that's when your soul is exiting, it's like this portal that you can induce, like because you can go in, you can take that leap into this portal, like when you consume DMT. I've smoked it, and it's like I was doing dabs of it for a while. I was like, there's this goopy stuff that I had where you could just take a big dab, and it's like you would get so fucking high on it, like you're like seeing music. Like you'd come out of your high, it would last about 15 minutes, but it seemed like a lot longer. But it would only be like 15 minutes usually. I remember coming out of my high, and I'm just like I was staring at just like this corner of my desk or something, but I've been watching all this amazing stuff take place, and I was listening to music. It was all coinciding. I was watching a beautiful thing unfold. When it finally all wore off, I'm just staring at the corner of my desk, and what I was watching the most beautiful and most insanely like complex things take place, and when it's all over, I'm just staring at the corner of my desk, and big deal. It's like it totally was. It just throws you for such a loop. Like all that stuff I was watching, was it all just in my mind? I mean, it seems so real. Pretty interesting. I don't know if it's something that we should really be playing with too much though. DMT, like I haven't done it in a long time, and I would do it again, but I think it's something we should be careful with in the sense like you can make two different arguments. It's like maybe it's good to get the hang of like navigating that headspace, so perhaps when we if we do get it, and I've heard people make the argument, well, like maybe you shouldn't be messing with it because maybe your body won't know to make that when it comes down when it needs to, and it won't do it, like, and you won't be able to the natural process won't occur. But I don't know, it's something to consider though. When I heard that argument made, I'm like, ooh, that I would hate to fuck with that. Hey, Lev. Hey, I was shouting you out earlier, man. At the beginning of my show, I was talking about your contribution to the conversation. And you know who else was shouting you out, Lev, was Zachary Zabala, Good Times for All on Glowbusters this morning. He shouted you out. You've been getting some love. Love, Lev. Lev. Level-headed Lev. This show's kind of getting long in the tooth. I hate to leave you all like this, but I think I might wrap it up. I don't usually have anybody watching me. You know what? I think my show is being like, I think YouTube is actually showing that my show. It's like I think people are being shown that I'm streaming, whereas normally I don't. It doesn't get shown because I'm usually using a different app. So I think maybe I'll do it like this from now on because I think I had a lot more people stopping in today. It seemed like I had a lot more people coming in and say hi. My shows have been like, I'll get like 14 views if I'm lucky. But today I had a lot more people watching. And it's hard for me to stop a show when there's people here already because I'm so used to not having anybody there. I'll usually just be like, well, I'm going to stop since nobody is watching me and there's no point in doing it. I left my guitar outside. Kind of want to play some more music. What do you guys? Is there something you guys want to talk about, or you got a new series on the way? Cool, man. I try to catch all your stuff. I like what I was saying earlier about it. Is I just like that you have your own unique perspective that you're bringing to the table, like, and that's what I try to do too. I try to have my own contribution because if we're just going to get online and talk about the same shit everybody's always talking about, I mean, it's like it's not really. I guess it helps it a little bit because you never know who you're going to reach, But I'm not saying that it's useless to do that, but I'm just saying it's a lot more, you have a lot more of an effect on the conversation if you bring your perspective into it, which is what you do, and I think it's really valuable. That's what people should be gaining inspiration from, because if everybody brought something unique to the picture to the table, I mean, the conversation would expand, exponentially. Like we would see a lot more. There'd just be a lot more to ponder, a lot more stuff to consider, because I think everybody's got their own contribution. They just they're not quite aware of it yet. Like I'm always blown away at the fact that like my epiphany to flat Earth is something I never really hear anybody else speaking on. Maybe because it's too obvious, or it's just something that is like a given. If you're a flat earther, then you obviously look at the Earth in that way. Whereas like I could try to summarize my epiphany in that, like, essentially a bigger piece of property, like I'm talking like a piece of land, a parcel. The bigger the parcel, the bigger the perimeter around the outside of it. That's simplified. I mean, it's like, so you just think, well, a bigger one has an even bigger perimeter around it. And so you just take that thought all the way out. The biggest perimeter, well, the biggest perimeter should have the entire known world inside of it. Right? I mean, that makes sense to me. Yeah, welcome to flat Earth. But people don't ever say that. Nobody ever says that. I always feel like I'm the only guy that's like thinking about it in that way. It's like, it must absolutely be possible to draw a perimeter around the entire known world. It just seems like that absolutely has to be the case, that it's possible to do that. Whereas on the globe Earth, the biggest circumference or whatever perimeter that you would draw is, I mean, perimeter is different. It's like a circumference is what I'm talking about, really. It's like if you draw a circle around, You can't draw a circle around the entire known world on the globe Earth. The biggest circle you can draw on the globe Earth is circling half the Earth. Now I've heard globers tell me, no, it's circling the whole Earth technically. And it's like, well, no, it isn't, because if the equator, for instance, was my property line, would I own the whole world? No, I'd own half the world. I don't know which half. It's kind of funny if you think about it. So if the equator is a circle, then what's it circling? uh, the thing is, I don't think the globe model actually claims the equator is a circumference or a circle. I think it claims it's a straight line. It's the only latitude line that's actually a straight line. And then you would know this by the sun moving straight over your head at the equator. And I thought that was a pretty good globe argument, really. Is it, why is the sun moving in a straight line? How is it circling if it's moving overhead in a straight line and then it comes back again behind you in a straight line again? Well, it's because that's the biggest circle the sun makes. So naturally, the biggest circle the sun makes is going to seem like a straight line in your locality because it's that big. But yeah, I mean, the globe model does have a lot going for it. It really does. But it has a lot of problems too, and it's a lot of stuff that I can't just accept on faith that I won't. In fact, if I have to, then I have to depart from what I know to be reality in order to do it. And it's ironic because people say that I'm doing that by believing in flat Earth, but no, I'm just logic is what led me to believe in flat Earth, or just to not believe in a globe, just to believe in objective reality, where it's like it absolutely must be possible to draw a perimeter around the entire known world. You can draw a perimeter around every place, every different location on Earth. And then you can combine those locations and draw a perimeter around those. Why can't you just combine all of them and draw a perimeter around all of it? Seems logical to me. All right, well, I'm going to run too. I got to do a few things here. But thanks for watching my show. It makes it a lot more fun when there's people here interacting. All right, love you guys. Don't be strangers.